So, over the past year, I've been speaking with people in positions of success, business owners, and people who are just generally getting things done in the world. And I've been asking people for life tips, work ethic tips, productivity tips, business advice, and so on. And I'm starting to build a collection of. It's I say collection, but in reality, it's a gold mine of wisdom, of information, of advice, of tips. And so recently I spoke with Didier Sibellas from Canva. So he's a big name in the creative industry, and I asked him for some advice, some of his knowledge on just general advice, business advice, as well as some sort of lifestyle tips. It was extremely insightful. It was actually he gave me a lot of interesting thoughts when I sat down with him to ask for his insight. So I'm just going to list off the things that I noted during my conversation with Didier. So the first thing he said, actually, his first piece of advice is to be less perfectionist. And he actually said perfection is not good. And this struck a chord with me personally, because that was one of the most useful lessons that I learned as a creative professional when I was really trying to fine-tune my work ethic, instead of obsessing over achieving a perfect result on a project. It's a lot more productive in the long run if you just focus on finishing projects and keep the projects coming, and accept that you won't reach perfection, and get to a level where you just feel like you can't improve it anymore to a significant degree, and then onto the next project. And that kind of lesson is something I personally came across a couple of years ago, and it really helped me. So the fact that Didier said be less perfectionist, that really struck a chord with me. So he said as well, don't take things personally, and all feedback is valuable. And that struck a chord with me as well. One of the biggest things I've been realizing over the past 6 months is that everybody has something to teach you if you ask the right questions. And this is something that I say to almost everybody I know. So this is one of my taglines, is everybody has something to teach you if you ask the right questions. So Didier, in Didier's words, all feedback is valuable. I felt like those two were quite tightly linked. So staying on the topic of feedback, he told me feedback is asked for, not given. And just because feedback is given, it doesn't mean it should be acted on. So all feedback is valuable, but you shouldn't necessarily feel pressure to follow someone's advice or to follow someone's suggestions. Like you should still stay true to your vision. But just those 3 points regarding feedback I thought were interesting, and especially as a creative professional, that first of those 3 points on feedback, the second, feedback is asked for, not given. Sometimes as creative professionals we can be quite introverted or introspective and hesitant to actually ask for an opinion on our work. So it's helpful to learn to ask for feedback. Right, so on to the next, which I thought was very helpful advice. So Didier said, learn to be more direct, not in an emotional way, but in a logical way. And I'm not quoting his exact words here. These are my notes. But the idea is learn to basically cut the fat and get to the point, but in a logical way. So he said something along the lines of, don't feel bad, and don't wait before saying something that bothers you. Nip problems in the bud instead of letting things develop into potential problems. And I thought that was useful advice. Sticking to the facts. Try to say things as early as possible. Stick to the facts. Stick to the kind of rational approach. Look, I don't think this idea is working in our project right now because this and he said, try to avoid terminology like I think. So you make it less personal, less kind of emotional, less subjective, and make it more like objective in your approach. So being more direct in making observations, constructive observations towards a project. Right. So that's the sort of work ethic / productivity tips from Didier out of the notes that I took, and I thought it was really cool because I got to ask him as well about some of his routine, as a person, and how he gets in the zone on a daily basis, and what keeps him going. And I got a really kind of really wholesome vibe, especially from what I'm about to talk about. So basically, I asked him, what his sort of routine is, and how he keeps going. And he's a surfer, so he'll get up in the morning, yoga, surfing before even working. I thought that was so cool. Just imagining that seems like quite an ideal day, for someone who's a creative anyone, before you even start your day at work, you're going out surfing, you're doing some yoga, you're just, for starters, a lot of successful people I've noticed are just preach the benefits of working out or getting physical exercise in the morning before starting your day, or that's the start of your day. It's like you get up, you work out, and it just sets you up for success for the rest of your day. Wes Watson talks about this. I made artwork for him. Dr. Neil Thin, the expert researcher on happiness, mentioned as well going for runs, and that he just feels great for the rest of the day. I spoke with him a couple of weeks ago. I experienced that myself. If I get up and I work out, just the rest of the day, you've already landed such a big victory. If you've worked out at the start of your day, the rest of the day is just like you're cruising on this rush of dopamine from the morning. So the fact that Didier Sibellas mentioned that he kind of surfs before even working, I thought that was so cool. And also, this is kind of one of the most interesting things that I have taken away from this conversation is, so he told me that he starts his day by spending 20 minutes doing nothing, all right? So meditation. And, meditation is something I hear, here and there. Like, it does pop up quite regularly as well, meditate in the morning or meditate throughout the day. And it seems like one of those things where you hear it a lot, but you don't necessarily know what people mean by meditation, or, people have different approaches as well to meditation. So I asked him to clarify a little bit on his approach. And I found this very interesting. So the approach to meditation that I was familiar with, and I'm not I don't do much meditation. It's something I want to do more of, but I'm not very knowledgeable on the topic. But from what I understand, a common form of meditation is to focus on breath and to try and bring your focus back to your breath when you start thinking. So to reel your thoughts back in instead of getting lost in your thoughts. But when I asked Didier to clarify his approach towards meditation, and this is the start to his day, you know, it's 20 minutes doing nothing, 20 minutes meditating, and it's a form of meditation. There's a name for it that he used, so this, some of you might have already heard of this specific kind of meditation, but I can't remember the name. But basically, you're not trying to avoid your thoughts. You're just letting the thoughts that do come up and that do come out, you're letting them come. You're kind of paying attention to them, and you're just kind of sitting, letting your thoughts come up, and that can set a tone for the direction of your day, because it can bring to your attention the things that have priority for you. Either on a subconscious level or just, you know, on a conscious level, what you kind of realize needs to get done for that day, and just spending that time in the morning letting these priorities bubble to the surface, these thoughts kind of come up and take your attention. From what I understand, from Didier's approach, this can actually, you know, help you set the tone for the direction of your day. But I thought that was really interesting, of starting the day by spending 20 minutes just doing nothing. And actually he said something in particular that I found of note. He said something along the lines of, it changes the time lapse of your day. And I thought that made a lot of sense, so the way that he put it is, so many of us, myself included, when we wake up, everything is a rush. It's non-stop. We wake up, check our phone, get out of bed. It's like, get ready, go to work. Like all, it's like a constant chain of back-to-back events, and there's no kind of space in between, or there's no buffer, there's no margin where you can just be alone with your thoughts. And so the way that time works in your day, because of that, is, I don't know if compressed is the right word, but it's you know, everything is so like fast paced. And from what Didier was saying, by spending 20 minutes at the start of your day just, you know, doing nothing, it just changes the whole kind of momentum of the day, and the whole time lapse, the whole time structure, the whole way that your brain, you know, views or interprets the passing of time for that day. Because the first thing that your brain has done in that day is take the time to breathe and not be constantly, you know, worrying about what now, what next, you know, the never-ending flux of events. So I thought that was a very, very interesting takeaway. And that pretty much sums up the notes that I took from our conversation. I really enjoyed sitting down with Didier Sibellas from Canva. It was a very insightful exchange, and I hope you learned something from this video.